Welcome to camp, campers. We got a whole group of people in the Discord who are very, very happy to help y'all out, alright? So exclamation Discord if you're not in there yet. Please keep the Bootcamp Talk in the Bootcamp Talk channel. You got VODs, so these are always recorded. You could always re-watch on Twitch. We all ready? Everyone pumped? Okay. Exclamation bootcamp, exclamation mats. You should see this. If you get to that mats link, you should see something like this. I would recommend clicking this button and adding the shortcut to your drive. And it should just be in your Google Drive as a shared folder, like share with me or something. It should just be there, okay? Are we good? Everyone do that? Step 1 complete? Can we just download it to a computer? You could also download it to your computer. But the way that it's sort of set up, everything kind of goes through Google Drive. And so if you want like all the packages installed, everything works out of the box, you could kind of let it just live in Google Drive and you don't have to like download anything. You don't have to install anything. It all just lives in the cloud, you know? So go ahead and open or make a copy of this NWBC Reds sheet, okay? Go ahead and make a copy for yourself. And it should look like this. I'm going to use this other copy called NW version Reds. I'm going to use this other copy. That way it's like my copy that you could kind of like cross-check with, sort of like your answer key when we're doing the stuff in Google Sheets. I told people that like day 1's gonna be the hardest day. It's all just setting up like data and making sure everyone's comfortable with the environment. So just, you know, bear with me. Luckily, the next step is pretty easy, chat. Someone asked how many rows there should be. There should be 49,000 rows. So we're gonna do just a really quick skill check for everyone. We're just gonna make a new column here called total score. This is baseball data, right? So in a game of baseball, you'll have a home score for the home team and the away score for the away team. If we add those, then I know the total score of the game, how many runs were scored in the game at that particular moment, right? In this case, this data set, for every row, it's one pitch that was thrown. And in particular, this was the 2022 season for the Cincinnati Reds. That's why it's called Nick Wan Bootcamp Reds as the file. So these are all the times where a pitcher from the Reds pitched or a batter from the Reds batted. We're going to add our home score and away score together, right? So really simple. We're just gonna equals and then scroll over to home score and click that. And if you're a cool person, maybe you do it by the reference. So we're just adding CB2 plus CC2 to get that total score. And then if you're in Google Sheets, it's gonna suggest an autofill. I'm just gonna fill the rest of these down. If you grab the corner of your cell and drag down, that also works. If you are familiar with Excel, familiar with spreadsheets, this should be like the most basic stuff that you do on a daily basis. You're just taking two columns, adding them together, taking information from a column, filtering that column, or extracting information from that column. So we're gonna try to get through today and load data into Python, make a new column, and then we'll make another column, and hopefully that's all we do. Are we all ready? Everyone ready for the Python part now? Let's go to Google Colab, exclamation Colab. If you're familiar with Colab, Google Colab, it's colab.research.google.com. Open up a new notebook, and your notebook should look a lot like, if I go new notebook like this, your new notebook should look kind of like this. Kind of like a blank notepad. Now the next thing I want you all to do is we're gonna click that connect button at the top here, okay? So go ahead and click connect. And you'll know it's connected when you'll see this check mark and you see RAM and disk in here. That means you're connected. All right, the next thing you need to do in order to connect your Google Drive to your notebook, you're gonna click this thing on the left. It says Files. It's gonna open up this panel right here. And at the top here, click Mount Drive, and it's gonna ask you, yo, do you really wanna do that? And I'm gonna say yes, I really do wanna do that. And at the bottom here, it's gonna say Mounting Drive. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna import OS. This is gonna allow us to check the contents of our file. So here's your first thing you're gonna do, okay? First coding thing in Python you're doing, if you've never coded in Python before, you're gonna type import OS, and you're gonna run this. You can either press this run cell button, or you can press Control Enter. If you get a little green check mark here, that means you successfully ran this line of code. This is gonna allow us to look in folders for files. And essentially what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna navigate to our Google Drive where these files are sitting, and then we're going to import that into our Python environment. All right, we're gonna make a new cell. And you could do that by, if you hover over here, you could click this plus code button. You could also insert code cell. So in this new cell, we're going to type in our first line of code, and we're gonna type in os.listdir, and then we're going to look at, we're just gonna click enter here. So what this is doing is you're listing your directory, okay? os listdir parentheses, okay? And you should have something that looks a lot like this. This should be pretty familiar because you got drive and sample data right here. This is basically a list of the directory that we're in here for Google Labs or Google Colab. If you were able to click Maths, add shortcut to drive, we're going to try to access that information. So we're gonna do single quotes, all right, single quotes, drive, my drive, and then for most people, it should be Maths. For me, it's a little different. For me, it's gonna be, okay, and it should list these files. If you do drive, my drive, Maths, it should look like that. It should look like this. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna load in the CSV here. This CSV, we're gonna load that CSV in, and that is actually gonna be the same as this data set that we have in Google Sheets. Remember, the whole point of this is for the people here who are really familiar or have familiarity with Excel or Google Sheets or spreadsheets, we're gonna take all that information you know in the spreadsheet world, and we're gonna convert that over one-to-one, function for function into Python, all right? All right, here we go, here we go, here we go. We're gonna go import pandas as PD, okay? That's what I want everyone to do, and we're gonna run that line. You're gonna get this green check mark. Think of pandas as your gateway to data analysis in Python, okay? This is where you're gonna import CSVs, work with what we call tabular or spreadsheet looking data. You're gonna be able to do things in this just like you're doing in Excel. The vast majority of this bootcamp is transferring your knowledge of Excel into pandas, okay? And once you're there, once we're at comfortability of, hey, I could do this shit in Python, in pandas, then we'll start doing data visualization, some linear regression stuff, we'll start doing that stuff. But a lot of this, the first 2 weeks of this chat, is transferring knowledge from Excel over into pandas, okay? For those wondering, I ran this thing, is it actually working? Let's do a check to see if it's working. I'm gonna type pd dot underscore underscore version underscore underscore. If we run this, it's going to give us the version of pandas that we're working on. And if you're in Google Colab, if you're working in the same stuff that I'm working in, y'all should all have 1.5.3, just like me. But so long as you're working past like pandas 1.3 or something, you should be fine. Okay, we're going to import our data set now. What does the 16 mean on the side? That means it's how many times you ran a cell. So for instance, I've ran 6 lines of code so far. If I keep hitting this a bunch of times, it's not going to give me the number 9. So I hit that apparently 3 times. If I hit this like another like 2 times, it's going to give me 11. So it's just the amount of times you ran code in your notebook. Will not impact you, will not affect you. Just keeps track. When we load in data, we have to load it into a variable, right? Think about it like this. X equals 1, right? If we type in X equals 1 and we run the cell, if we go into another cell and we type in print X, X is 1. And if we have 2 lines, X equals 1, Y equals 2, if we do X plus Y print, it's gonna give us 3. Just like variables, right? Anything in Python, 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to store it in a variable. Okay, so we're going to do that same thing, except instead of just 1 or 2, we're going to import the entire CSV. So think about it like opening this entire thing and storing it into a variable, storing it into a variable name. Okay, so colloquially, we're going to store this as a data frame. So a lot of the time, you'll see shorthand df. All right, so we'll do df equals, just like how we do x equals 1. We're going to do df equals our file, right? And so to load our file, we're going to use pandas. That's this PD thing that we loaded in, right? So follow along with me. We're going to read the CSV using the pandas library. Okay, so that using pandas, PD, we're going to access a function inside of pandas. We'll use this dot, right? So PD dot, just like how you did os dot list dir to list directories using the os library, we're going to use pandas, PD dot read CSV, and then we're going to type in the path to get to our file. Okay, I'm just going to copy this. For you, it might be drive my drive mats. If you're local, it might be like my documents dot mom don't read this slash 2023 NWBC reds.csv. Do we want to copy the original file or the copy? Just this is fine. Just this is fine because we're not gonna really save over it. We're just gonna load it in. There's no like saving, overwriting the file unless you write code to do that, which we're not gonna write any code to do that. I'm gonna run this cell now. I'm gonna press Control Enter, it's gonna run. And it's gonna take 1 second to run this time. And then if I make a new cell, if I make a new coding cell, you know, using this code button, you could also use a shortcut if you learn some sort of keyboard shortcut. There's a few keyboard shortcuts for you to make a new cell. In a new cell, I'm going to type in, now that I've loaded my data frame, I'm going to type in df.head with parentheses here, okay? I'm going to run that, and you should get this. You should see this data, first 5 rows. Campers, you've officially opened. You've loaded in data, you've officially opened data in Python. We've opened up our data. Now let's kind of play around with the data a little. For instance, you might scroll through and you notice that it doesn't give me all of the columns, right? Like Excel or Google Sheets, if I scroll from left to right, I get all 95 fucking columns straight up. This is really just a summary of the table. It's just trying to give you a glance, like the first handful of rows, also only the first handful of columns. And then also the last handful of columns, just to eyeball the data, right? So there's a ton of columns that we don't have in here. But if we wanted to list the columns, right? If we wanted to see what columns are in our data set, we could actually access that Just like how we were accessing other functions, we could access that using another dot function here. If we do df.columns and we press enter, we'll get all those column names. And these column names are quite literally the column names here in order, right? Pitch type, game date, release speed, release pos x. That's same here. Pitch type, game date, release speed, release pos x. This is in order, the columns. Right? At the very end, you got attack, zone, swing, and batter name. Right? Over all the way here. Here's attack, zone, swing, batter name. And remember, we made this column at the beginning of the stream. Total score, right? That's not in there yet. We haven't made that yet, all right? We're gonna make that soon. So attack, zone, swing, batter name, right? So all of these column names are awesome because unlike Excel or whatever spreadsheet you're using, remember the equation we wrote, right? Like CB2 plus CC2? That is relating to home score and away score, right? So this is the column home score and this is the column away score, CB2 and CC2. The beauty of something like pandas, or if you're in a different coding language, most coding languages, including like database languages, usually don't use some sort of indexing like that. They usually use some sort of label indexing. So notice how this says index, right? All of these are label indices or indexes. So if we wanted to look up home scores, we could type in df, use our square brackets to say, like, we're gonna look into a column of data right now. Use single parentheses, and then type in home score, okay? And if we run that cell, we're gonna get a small looking list of the home scores, right? The first 5 rows, 2s, and the last 5 rows being 0s, okay? df, square brackets, inside the square brackets, write the string here, home score. So in pandas, whenever we're going to like access a column of information, rather than typing something like CB2 to get home score, or the column CB for home score, we're just gonna type in the word home score, okay? Way easier, right? Just to type in the word home score. It's the same thing with like away score. You could type in the word away score, you get this column, right? And you could do this again like with any of these things, right? If you wanted to do this with batter name, right? You can type in the word batter name, and here are all the batter names. Here are all the different pitch names. All right, so we have home score, right? And then we have away score. Okay, now what if we wanted to do this? Total score is home score plus away score in pandas. Well, we know how to access home score, and we know how to access away score. It should just be as easy as adding home score and away score. If you add these together, you actually do get home score plus away score, just like here. One column plus another column will equal this entire column, right? Everything here. And you don't need to do any fill down or anything. It's just adding it both together, all the numbers in each row. So let's make a new column, right? And we're gonna call it the same thing. We're gonna call this column total score, just like in our spreadsheet, okay? And it's gonna be really easy. Just like setting a variable, we're gonna set a variable, except the variable name is gonna be this column name inside of our data frame. Okay, just like how we called a column from this data frame before, we could add 2 columns and set that equal to a new column. And if we run that, and this green check says the cell ran fine. And if we type in df.head again, and we scroll all the way to the right, you'll see that we have a new column, y'all. And that column is total score. So you have added one column in your data frame from your CSV to another column in your data frame, another column in your CSV, added those together, and you've created a new column in your data frame. We're gonna go into hard mode now. I'm going to assume that this next thing we do, everyone has done before, or everyone has done in some way before, using if statements in Excel. If you got through all the skill check, then this is gonna be easy. It's gonna be easy for you. So let's go back over that spreadsheet, and we see in column J, there is description. And inside description, we have a bunch of different pitch events, right? You can see when a pitch was hit into play, if a pitch was called a ball, if a pitch was hit foul, if it was called a strike, if it was a swinging strike, and then there's also different bunt events in here, right? Well, there isn't actually a column in here that's a binary of like, was this a strike event or was this not a strike event, right? 1 if strike, 0 if not strike, right? So let's use description to make a column like this, right? What we're gonna do is we're going to take some of the strings, some of the labels in here, and conditionally say if the word strike, if the word foul, or if the word missed bunt is inside, is one of these values, then we're gonna call that a strike. But if it doesn't say strike, foul, or missed bunt, then it's not a strike. Okay, so let's do this. All right, we're gonna make this called is strike. So I know the column that column J is the column I need to say in column J, on the row that I'm on, does it say strike, foul, or missed bunt? Okay, and this is an if statement. So if it says strike, foul, or missed bunt, then 1, else 0, okay? And this is how I'm gonna write it. I know it's an if statement, and I need an or statement, because it's 3 different things. It's strike, foul, or missed bunt. I'm gonna use the function find, because I'm looking for the string, strike, foul, or missed bunt. I'm looking for something specific. But when I use the find function, it's actually going to return to me like a number. It's gonna return to me a number if it exists. And if it doesn't exist, it's gonna return a null. So I need to know, does it return a number if I'm looking for the word strike in this cell? So we're gonna look, again, we're looking for the word strike. We're also looking for the word foul. This, or missed bunt, right? I'm looking for the word strike, and if that returns a number, foul, if that returns some number, or missed bunt, miss underscore bunt. I'll close off this or statement. If that's equal to true, if that's true, it returned a number. If any of these are true, return 1, else return 0, okay? And then it's gonna ask me to autofill, and I'm gonna say yes, and it's gonna take a second, and then we're good. And you can see 3 zeros and 2 ones to start this off, 3 zeros and 2 ones, right? And if we go all the way over to column J, you can see hit into play, ball, and then called strike, swinging strike. Okay, so this would be 0, 0, 0. They're not strikes. Called strike, that's a strike for sure. Swinging strike, that's also a strike, right? So that makes sense. We're getting 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. Let's do some stuff inside that description column. Remember description, that column J. Remember those first 5 values: hit into play, ball, called strike, swinging strike. If you're in a column and you're like, I wonder what all the things in this column, I wonder what all the things inside of this column of data, right? Remember, square brackets, and then the name of the column in a single quote, that will get you that column of information. You might be wondering, like, what are all the unique values, right? And if you type in .unique, parentheses, this is the function to call all the unique values inside of a column. If you run this, you should see this. So rather than seeing, a column of info, you're getting this unique return, and then you're getting all of these unique values, right? These are all the values that are represented one time or more inside of your column. Let's put all of the things that we care about into what's called a list. We're going to use square brackets, and I'm going to copy over some of these values. Okay, I'm just going to copy over called strike, swinging strike, foul, swinging strike blocked, foul tip, foul bunt, miss bunt, bunt foul tip. I'm gonna copy all of that over. And if you run that, you should see something that looks like this: square bracket, and then all of those values that we just put into a list, right? So we call this a list. And remember, y'all, what I said in the beginning, x equals 1, y equals 2. Everything needs a variable. So you can't just let this live in the ecosystem of Python and assume that you could recall this at any given moment. Let's set this equal to a variable name, and we're going to call this strike events. So strike events equals this list, right? And I'm just going to make this look a little nice. I'm just going to put some of these values online so we can all see it. Okay, you don't have to do that. This makes it a little more readable for everyone on the stream, for everyone on YouTube. Everyone wave to everyone on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, and if we run that, and then we look at a new cell, you'll see strike events. When you call that, this will come up like this. Or if you print strike events, same thing, you'll get all of your strike events. So if we type into df head, remember, we could always look at our top 5 rows with df head. We're going to do something called conditional filtering using what's called the loc method. This is for locating information based off essentially if statements, if or and statements. Okay. So for instance, we're going to use loc square brackets. If I'm looking into description, say I wanted to look for anything that says foul. And if I run this, I'm going to get all of these descriptions that are equal to foul. And we could do that with all of these things. If I wanted to get a description of everything that said called strike, this would be 8,000 different rows. And all of that description, all of these labels would be called strike. Swinging strike blocked, right? You could run through this 300 rows. Here's 300 rows. Swinging strike block. Everyone okay with conditional filtering? Let's kick it up a notch. So rather than looking for just one label, let's look for maybe a list of labels. So rather than saying equals one thing, we could use a function called isIn. That's going to be really similar to find isNumber. Like if this thing or this thing or this thing is represented in this row, say yes, right? So we're going to use this thing called isIn. We're going to look for the events inside of strike events, right? We called this strike events. And if we run through this, we're going to get a lot of rows, 22,000 rows, and you're going to see called strike, swinging strike, called strike, foul inside of this list, right? So these are all these things. These are all of these different string labels, string values represented in the list that we have here. And we're just calling it in a batch. Anything inside of this list, if it matches the description, it's going to be a strike. We now know we could select all the strike events. Let's put it all together, right? Just like how we did before. Remember how we did it with total score? We made a new column. Let's make a new column of information, and we're going to call this is strike. And let's set this equal to 0. So let's just start it off by everything in this column, everything, all the values are 0. Okay? And if you look at df.head, and you scroll all the way to the side here, all the way to the end, is strike, it should have a new column in there, and it's all zeros. Now, we're going to take this stuff that we just did, selecting these rows, okay? And remember what we just did? We selected the rows conditionally. Now we're going to put a comma in here, right? And we're going to call is strike. So we're calling this column now, right? So this is accessing our rows. We're saying all of this information, this is like our if statement, right? This is saying like, hey, this is the if statement. Now we want to put a 1 or a 0 in there. In pandas, this is like we're putting in our if statement or conditional statement, filtering the rows. And inside of the column is strike, right? In this column, inside of this column, I want to set that equal to 1. Okay? So, is strike 0, that fills all of this with 0. But, anytime the strike event is true, anytime the strike event happens, one of those 22,928 times, I'm going to change is strike to the number 1, right? If I run this and I go df head again and scroll all the way to the end here, you'll see 3 zeros, 2 1s, just like how we did it here, 3 zeros, 2 1s, right? And if we look at description, that's hit into play, ball, ball, called strike. That's one of the first strike events, right? Called strike. And swinging strike, which is another one of our events. Some of you all might be like, well, this is only 5 rows. What if I want to see more than 5 rows? Well, luckily, df.head, you can actually put a number inside of df.head. So if I wanted to see, say, 50 rows, let's just type in the number 50 and run that. You'll now get 50 rows. So if you want a little more validation, the first 5 rows, what about the next 5 rows? 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. Let's see if that's the same in the spreadsheet. 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. Looks pretty good. Okay, chat. Let's go over all the stuff we did today. What we did was we opened up this Google Sheet and we created 2 new columns. One was just total score. We just added 2 columns together. And then we created is strike, where we took a bunch of strike events and we ripped that out of the description. Then, inside of Python, and for a lot of you, your first fucking time in Python, congrats to y'all who made it this far, your first time in Python, you imported OS. Oh, sorry, before all of that, you connected your notebook, you connected that to your Google Drive using the mount function here. For some of you, you downloaded that data and then you use that data locally. You imported OS, you found where your files are, then you imported pandas, we checked the version number. I showed you a little about the variables inside of pandas, or inside of Python. You could set things equal to x, set things equal to y. We could add things together, just like x plus y, 1 plus 2. We could do all that stuff. We could also set variables like an entire spreadsheet of data, right? That same CSV that we're using in the Excel and the Google Sheets, we imported that with pandas. So using pandas, we read the CSV into data frame, right, into DF. And then we looked at it. You open data for the first time in pandas using df.head. Then we looked at all the columns, lots of columns, lots of columns. And then we added 2 columns together to create total score, just like how we did in that Excel. And then we looked at the unique values inside of description. We took all the unique values that are related to strikes from the description, put that into a list, and then created a variable, strike events. Then we made a new column, is strike, using those strike events. Set that to 1, and then we played around a little with df.head and is strike, okay? All right, chat. We have homework. All right, here's your homework assignment for Thursday. We'll go over the homework as well on Thursday, okay? Here's question number 1. Use the strikes column to find where there are 2 strikes and make a new column indicating whether the pitch was thrown in a 2-strike situation. Okay? Name this is 2 strikes. Okay? So there's a column. There's a column called strikes, and this is telling you how many strikes there are during the pitch. Okay? Is there 0 strikes, 1 strike, 2 strikes? However many strikes there are, I want you to find all the ones where there are 2 strikes specifically, and then make a new column saying whether that pitch was thrown in a 2-strike situation or not, okay? That's homework number 1. All right? Here's homework number 2. Use the release speed. Use the release speed column to find when a pitch is thrown greater than 94 miles per hour. The column is in miles per hour already. There's no conversions you need. Name this is high velo. Okay, so here's that release speed column, and you can see some pitches are thrown pretty fast. Some pitches, maybe not as fast. So using that release speed column, find when a pitch is thrown greater than 94 miles an hour. One more homework here, one more question. Use the description column again, and the attack zone column to indicate when a pitch is thrown for a called or swinging strike, not a foul, in the heart attack zone. Hint, this requires 2 conditional statements. Maybe Google. So greater than 94, not greater or equal to. Exactly, just greater than. Not greater than or equal to. All right, so you have your homework assignment. I'm gonna post this in the Discord as well. Hopefully, I'll see you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Hit the follow button here so you can get those notifications when I go live. I wanna see y'all here tomorrow. Come hang out if you like hanging out, you know, on non-camp days. I like having fun with y'all, and this was really fun tonight.